Good morning, good afternoon, and good night, depending on which part of the world you're watching this video from. I'm Myrna Loy of Blackbright News, Managing Editor and Founder. And if you're interested in looking at any of the magazines, you can look at them free at www.issuu.com/Blackbright News. But if you're anything like me, you're a visual learner, you prefer to look at things by watching videos and maybe listening to CDs and YouTube and stuff. Anyway, for those who do like to have a little read, that's where you'll find some of the stuff. Now, today's video is about being black and when it's convenient, we are citizens, and when it's not, we're criminals or we're seen as baddies. Now, I thought it was just in England, because in England, you know, we're always called immigrants, or we're always looked down on. But put us in a football team and one of us scores a goal, all of a sudden we're celebrated. You know what I mean? And it's not nice, and it happens all the times. Anytime we're in sports and we win, all of a sudden we become British or English. But God forbid any of us get into trouble. We're criminals and we're immigrants. And it's similar. Remember that guy that they called him Spider-Man, the guy in Paris, and he scaled this building and saved a baby. He was I don't know if he was an illegal immigrant or if he was just an immigrant. But anyway, he was from Mali. And he scaled the flats and he saved this baby. And his name was Mamadou something or other. He's got quite a complicated last name. Anyway, he was an immigrant. But as soon as he saved the baby, he was a citizen. So, you know, because he did something heroic and he did something that represents France well. Well, the reason why I'm saying this is because I was sent a video. You know me, I always like my little videos to endorse what I'm saying. And I'm going to show it to you now because this kind of captures my sentiments completely. Okay?
I wanted to share this little story with you. I got into a little bit of trouble with the French government. I know, the French government. So what happened was, let's start at the beginning. France won the World Cup, and so on the show, we celebrated that, and I had this joke where I said Africa won the World Cup. Yeah, and I was shocked at how angry a lot of French people got. Like, genuinely, a lot of French people were angry, and they were like, "Oh, Trevor, how can you say this? Why would you say these things? And, you know, this is horrible." And I was like, "Okay, I get it. Like, not everyone likes every joke that you tell, and I get that. But this was interesting. I got a letter from the ambassador of France, and I'll read it to you. It was about that joke, and he says, I'll try to read it how I hope he wrote it, which was, he says, "Sir, I watched with great attention your July 17th show when you spoke of the victory of the French team at the 2018 FIFA World Cup Russia final, which took place last Sunday. I heard your words about an African victory. Nothing could be less true." Now, first of all, I think it could have been less. I could have said they were Scandinavian. That would have been less true. That would have been less true. He says, "As many of the players have already stated themselves, their parents may have come from another country, but the great majority of them, all but 2 out of 23, were born in France. They were educated in France. They learned to play soccer in France. They are French citizens. They are proud of their country, France. The rich and various backgrounds of these players is a reflection of France's diversity. France is indeed..." Now, that line there was interesting. "The rich and various backgrounds of these players is a reflection of France's diversity." Now, I'm not trying to be an asshole, but I think it's more a reflection of France's colonialism. Because it's not like it's just like random play. Like, they all have something in common. Like, all of those players, if you trace their lineage, you're like, how did you guys become French? Like, how did your family start speaking French? Oh, okay, all right. They say here, he says, France is indeed a cosmopolitan country, but every citizen is part of the French identity, and together they belong to the nation of France. Unlike in the United States of America, France does not refer to its citizens based on their race, religion, or origin. To us, there is no hyphenated identity. Roots are an individual reality. By calling them an African team, it seems you are denying their Frenchness. This, even in jest, legitimizes the ideology which claims whiteness as the only definition of being French. So now, here's the thing. All right, first things first. I understand what he's saying, because I read up on this afterwards, right? I take criticism. I'll listen to what somebody says to me. You know, I genuinely believe you should. And what it turns out is, in France, a lot of, like, Nazis in that country use the fact that these players are of African descent to shit on their Frenchness, you know? So they go, you're not French. You're from Africa. Go back to where you came from. You're not French. They use that as a line of attack. Now, my opinion is, coming from South Africa, coming from Africa, and even watching the World Cup in the United States of America, black people all over the world were celebrating the Africanness of the French players, right? Not in a negative way, but rather in a positive way, going, look at these Africans who can become French. You know what I mean? It's a celebration of that achievement. And so this is what I find weird in these arguments, is that people go, they're not African, they're French. Then I'm like, why can't they be both? Why is that duality only afforded to a select group of people? Why can they not be African? So what they're arguing here is, in order to be French, you have to erase everything that is African. Because what do they mean when they say that? Our culture, our this, like, so you cannot be French and African at the same time, which I vehemently disagree with. I go, if you've seen those players, I love them. Paul Pogba, N'Golo Kante, I've watched all of them. Like, I love those players, and I love how African they are and how French they are. I don't take their Frenchness away, but I also don't think you need to take their Africanness away. You know, and that is what I love about America. America's not a perfect country, but what I love about this place is that people can still celebrate their identity in their Americanness. You can go to a St. Patrick's Day parade in America celebrating that you are Irish. You can go to a Puerto Rican Day parade in America still celebrating the fact that you're Puerto Rican and American at the same time. You can celebrate Juneteenth as a black person and be like, yo, I'm African American, which is the duality of the two worlds. But here they're going, no, you are only French. And here's why it vexes me, to be honest. This is what I find interesting, is like, when I read stories from Africa and when I watch what politicians say, especially in France, about African migrants, when they are unemployed, when they may commit a crime, or when they are considered unsavory, it's the African immigrants.
Exactly what I was saying.
When their children go on to provide a World Cup victory for France, we should only refer to them as France.
Right, and British.
And we even saw it with that African man who climbed the building to rescue the baby. Do you remember that?
Yep.
We watched him climb that building. He rescued the child. And then they gave him French citizenship. They said, you are now French. So now I'm going, so is he now no longer African? Is that what you're saying? So when he was on the ground, he was African. And then he climbed up, and as soon as he rescued the baby, now he's French. So if he dropped the baby, the African dropped the baby.
Oh dear. It's true though.
Like, I don't believe that you need, and here's, like I say, again, with respect, I understand what the ambassador is saying. I'm not joining the attack, and I know, don't get me wrong, I know. There's like, you know, we live in a world where, like, nuance is something that is in short supply. And so you will find, you know, in America, for instance, the alt-right saying, that's what we've been saying. They're not French. And we're saying, it's like, but if Trevor says it, it's not racist. But if we say it's racist, like, yeah, I'll say yeah. You know why? Because I believe context is everything. There are certain things you can say to somebody that, like, when I say to my friends, what's going on, my nigga? And if a white person came and said the same thing, yeah, there's a big difference. When I'm saying they're African, I'm not saying it as a way to exclude them from their Frenchness, but I'm rather using it to include them in my Africanness. I'm saying, I see you, my French brother of African descent. Do you know what I'm saying? That's what I'm trying to say. When somebody else says it the other way, you can use the same line in different ways. People are like, so it's different? Yeah, it's different. It can be different. It's like somebody saying, oh, so if you play with your naked child, that's a problem, but if I do it, I'm a pedophile? Yeah. There's a big difference. There's a huge difference. So I will continue to praise them for being African, because I believe that they are of Africa. Their parents are from Africa, and they can be French at the same time. And if French people are saying they cannot be both, then I think they have a problem, and not me.
I thought that was really interesting, because you know what? It's something that we've been saying all the time and we don't vocalize it. You know, we feel it and we recognize it. We see it on the media, and we kind of think to ourselves, oh yeah, you know, if they were a criminal, their faces would be plastered all over the TV, and like they say, get out of our country. And they do boot you out if you've committed a crime. Even if you're born in the country now, they're booting you out if you spent some time in jail, and they're sending you to a country you've never even been to. They're sending you to the country of your parents. So, you know, it's really, I'm glad that Trevor has brought that out in the open, because it is so true. And it might be uncomfortable for certain people to absorb that, but you can't benefit from us in one way and then, you know, negate us in another, because that's what happens. You know, like with those people who came on the Windrush, we built up the country, and, you know, it was great while we were doing it. We were the greatest people on earth. But as soon as now you've got your country in order, now you want to kick us out and say we're immigrants and, you know, we don't belong here. It's not right, and it's not fair. If you can't use us for one thing, well, I say you can't. You have been doing that, but it's unfair to use us to build you up, and then once you're okay, you knock us down. Or if we get ourselves in trouble, you know, you don't want to have anything to do with us. Lauryn Hill, she was one of the biggest singers in Fugees. She went to jail. You don't hear from her anymore. You know, there's this other guy. What's his name? Rocky Million. You know, he was great. I've never heard of him since he went into jail. And that's what happens. You know, they're criminalised. And nobody wants to know. Nobody will touch them with a barge pole, regardless of their talent, regardless of how great they were before they went into jail. And the thing is, it's not like they committed murder. It's to do with tax evasion. And, you know, yeah, so tax evasion. I'm not saying that you shouldn't pay your tax. I'm just saying it's not like it's a mega crime like murder or armed robbery. And yet they've disappeared off the face of the earth. Why? Because they're black with a record. You know what I mean? But if that same person had won a gold cup, like all those guys that in the British football team, you know, if they'd actually won the gold cup, I mean, okay, they got through to the semi-finals, but if they'd actually won it, those black guys would be heroes. We won't hear much of them now because they didn't get through, but it's not right and it's not fair. So I applaud Trevor for that little bit, and I hope you hear where I'm coming from. I hope you understand where he's coming from, that we are dual nationality. I call myself Black British. I don't call myself Jamaican British because I don't know why I don't call myself Jamaican British. That's a point, because that's where my parents are from. But I've never even thought about calling myself Jamaican British. It's much easier. Otherwise, all the islands, I guess, in Britain, you'd have Trinidadian British, you'd have Guyanese British. I guess it gets too complicated. So we just call ourselves Black British. And then if you want to find out our background, it's somewhere. You know what I mean? If it's that important. Okay. Well, I hope you found it useful, and have a lovely day and a lovely weekend. Or, well, I shouldn't really say that because I don't know when you're going to be watching this video. But hey, I hope it's pertinent whenever you decide to watch it. Take care for now. Bye-bye.